right, thank you very much, Vish. First, let me just welcome everyone on behalf of Optimus to our webinar today. And as Vishal had said, we'll be, looking at today's topic really is introduction to jet budgets. But you will notice that it's going to be limited mostly to Dynamics GP, the Dynamics GP environment. For those of you who may have been present in a previous webinar, I told you that the JET product is primarily designed for three key products, i.e. the Dynamics GP, Dynamics NAV or Business Central, and also for those of you who may be familiar with AX, previously known as Axapto. But even though the JET is designed primarily for these three ERPs in particular, the fact is that for some of the JET modules, once you're able to connect to your underlying databases using what is called any ODBC, the acronym meaning Object Database Connectivity, ODBC compliant type database, you're able to actually pull data from these databases or actually even write to these databases. So today we'll be centering or focusing mainly on Dynamics GP, and the concept behind the Dynamics GP would be the same as in Business Central. The only key difference is, unlike in GP, where you would use accounting segments to differentiate your accounting or your GL structure, maybe having a particular segment for departments, sections, etc. Dynamics GP, Dynamics NAV rather, or Business Central, is a little bit different in that it uses dimensions. But the concept is the same. So if we get a good grasp of budgeting within the context of Dynamics GP, you should be able to translate what we're about to do today in the other systems. So I'm going to actually now start sharing my screen, and I'm hoping you'll be all able to see it. And let me just start. Okay. Now, again, just a quick recap coming from a previous session that I would have had with you, is that there are three key service offerings in the JET Global suite of products. One being the JET Reports, which, as you can imagine, is just you being able within the Excel environment using a JET add-in that allows you to pull data from the underlying databases. And with you being able to pull the data from these databases, whether if it's GP or NAV, Business Central, or AX, or any other ODBC compliant environment, you are able to incorporate the functions which have been specifically designed by JET and to actually integrate them with the standard Excel functions that you would be accustomed to in the normal workings of your Excel. There's also the service offering or the product, which is called the JET Analytics. And I believe in my previous session with you, I basically said that the JET Analytics can be conceptualized, if some of you may be that old to remember the concept of the Rubik's Cube. And with the JET Analytics, what you're actually trying to do is to look at data from different perspectives, because you're hoping that from looking at this data from all of these perspectives, you might see something interesting that you would not normally have seen
if you are looking at these reports on a tabular basis. It's just like when you're hearing someone saying that the glass is half empty as against the glass is half full. It's the same thing, but it may convey maybe a different interpretation depending on how you look at it. And when we spoke about the analytics, we mentioned things like, the whole thing of data warehousing. We explained the terminology. We explained the terminology of fact tables, and we explained other terminologies including dimensions, what dimensions were, etc. So today we're going to be looking at the basics of jet budgets. Now, if I were to ask of the three service offerings, where would I place the jet budgets? I would say the jet budgets would be the easiest of the three. So if I were to rank them, I would say in order of complexity. First, there would be jet budgets, then jet reports, because of you requiring to integrate the functionality of jet with also the functionalities that are present in Excel. And the third, as far as the complexity, and when I say third, I'm saying as in being the most complex. The most complex would definitely be jet analytics. So I would say just sit back and relax, because today's training should be very easy. So what is the jet budgets all about? Well, the jet budgets is really a module which allows you to seamlessly integrate with your Dynamics GP environment or your Dynamics NAV environment, and you are able, using Excel as your foundation, to create budgets. And in creating these budgets, you are able to upload the budgets, and in uploading the budgets, you're able to prepare internal management reports or performance-based reports or variance type reports that will actually use the actual data of your underlying databases in your ERP with your jet budgets. Now, for those of you who are maybe a little bit technical, you may want to ask the question, are these budgets, when they are created, are they actually stored in the Dynamics GP databases or in the NAV/Business Central databases? And the answer is no. These budgets are therefore stored in databases in your SQL environment, in jet specifically designed databases. So there's no interference with your underlying databases. The only thing that is done is that when these files are uploaded and you now need to report using the budgets, the jet budgets will therefore pull the actual data from your underlying databases, as well as pulling data from the budget files that exist in the jet databases. Now, what are some of the key functionalities which I'll be demonstrating to you as we discuss jet budgets? Well, jet budgets allows you to have several co-owners of a budget, and we'll soon define what is the role of a co-owner. And you can also determine whether you will have multiple approvers of a budget. And also you can determine who is the contributor for a budget. The thing to notice about these three roles, however, is that whilst you can have multiple co-owners of a budget and multiple approvers of a budget, for the preparation of a budget, that is the person who is a budget contributor, there can only be one contributor assigned to a budget template. Some of the other key features to note about the jet budget application are as follows. One, the system is able to send out email notifications, so you can configure, for instance, if budget templates go out to the various department heads for them to prepare their budgets, you can configure the system to send reminders So you may say, okay, using an example, send a reminder 5 days before a budget is due, 3 days before a budget is due, and 1 day before a budget is due. But not only do you have the ability to configure notifications prior to the submission or the deadline of a budget, you can also configure notifications post budget completion date. So the configuring for post budget notifications can be different from post date or pre-deadline. Pre-deadlines. So you could say if a deadline has been passed for the submission of a budget, then you would want your budget notification, i.e. an email going out to both the approver and to the budget contributor, maybe on a daily basis. So you can configure all of that. It therefore means that for those who are administrators in the JET environment, that you'd have to set up what is called the SMTP settings. While this is not a technical presentation, I'll just let you know that SMTP is the acronym for Simple Mail Transport Protocol. And it's really the protocol that deals with email configuration, and in particularly the sending out of email. For the receiving of email, as those of you who know, it's usually what is called a POP3 or POP3, Post Office Protocol. But you have to, it is recommended that you do set up the SMTP settings, which I'll show you where you do that. And that is so because you want to bring more efficiency to the budget process. Another feature of the budgeting process, as we will see in a demo, is that it allows you to structure and compartmentalize your budgets so that you can have proper roll-ups. You also have the ability to assign budgets to others. So with that broad overview, we will start with our presentation. And here I just have a single PowerPoint slide so that we could differentiate among 3 types of roles, because it is very key when we're preparing the budgets. One, when persons are assigned to the budgeting process, they can be assigned as an owner. And the owner is the one who really has the overall responsibility for the budgets. Anyone who is assigned as an owner for the budget is usually the individual who will prepare the budget templates and to assign them to the various department heads. And in assigning to the department heads, will send out the budgets and do the necessary follow-ups. Also, those who are a part of the ownership group can also approve budgets. Next, we have the budget contributor. And the budget contributor is really the person who's going to be responsible for entering the data. And it's usually the person, for example, like a department manager, department head, etc., or someone senior within a particular segment of the organization. Thirdly, you will have those who are designated as what is called the approver. So someone can be both a budget owner and an approver, but it's important to note that the approver, therefore, is someone who can actually review, approve, or reject the budgets. Now, why is this important? As you will see in the demonstration, the expected process is as soon as the budget owner prepares the budget and sends the budget templates, or what from now on I'll use the word work items. So a work item is really a budget template. As soon as the budget owner prepares the work item and sends it out to the respective heads who are expected to be the contributors, the contributor, once their budget is completed, they actually submit their budget for approval. And in submitting the budget for approval, the approver is able to review the budget, look at the numbers, and can make a decision to accept that is approved or to reject the budget. Now, once the budget is approved, the contributor is unable to make subsequent changes to the budget. So you can consider the budget being closed once it's approved. If, however, maybe after review, there's a realization that the budgets probably need to be sent back to the department heads for revision, or to a particular individual, a particular person, then the approver would have to go through a process where they actually reject the budget. And in rejecting the budget, an email notification would be sent to the contributor automatically, advising them that the budget has been rejected and that they would need to make the requisite adjustments to their budget and then to resubmit. So that is the process when we have to consider when you're looking at the roles. So once again, the owner is the one who will take complete responsibility for the preparation of the budget file or the budget files. They are the ones who will create the templates, and in creating the templates, they will assign these budgets to contributors. When assigning the budgets to contributors, they have to determine the deadline to which the budgets are to be returned. And once the contributor does or is preparing their budget, they can receive emails prior to and post the deadline date based on the setups that would have been done or that would have been made by the budget owner. And once they submit the budget, there's now an approval process where the person designated as the approver, after reviewing their budget, can either close the budget by finally approving it, or they may reject the budget. And in rejecting the budget, a notification will be sent to the contributor, who will be advised of the rejection, and then they will make the requisite changes and then resubmit the budget. So without any further ado, I'm just going to go into my personal environment, and I hope you're all able to see the screen. Good. So here we are in my own environment with the Jet Hub screen loaded. Think of the Jet Hub as a repository. For those of you who are probably familiar with the Jet products and the Jet Hub in particular, this may not be new to you, but I'm assuming that there may be individuals who are not too familiar with this. So what really is the Jet Hub? As I said, think of it as a kind of a receptacle, a repository. Usually it is loaded and the data stored on a server. And it's a receptacle for reports that would have been designed by designers, or reports which may need, Jet reports that may need to be saved in containers so that they can be subsequently used by other users who have access to Jet reports. But also the Jet Hub is used to maintain and to administer, hold on, sorry. Right. It will be used to maintain and to administer the budgeting process. So for you to be able to access your budgets as a contributor or even as an owner, you have to be set up on the Jet Hub. So we're just going to go through just a few administrative things that we need to look at on the Jet Hub itself. The first thing I'd like us to look at is this gear. Now again, for those of you who are familiar, once you see the gear icon usually means that this is where you go to do particular configurations for your applications, to set up things like permissions and other types of configuration settings which are necessary for the application to run. So if we look under the gear, clicking the gear icon, you'll notice we have a few menu items. Now the two that I want you to, that we're going to be going through, which are pertinent to JetBudgets, are the settings menu item and the admin. So under settings, what do we have available to us? Well, this submenu, which is called email, is going to be critical because you may remember I would have said earlier that the email is a critical function of the budgeting process. Can the budgeting process work without you configuring and setting up email? Yes. So it's not totally necessary, but what I would say is emailing and being able to send out emails is a critical component in the budgeting process in JetBudgets. So it allows you to be more efficient in managing the budgeting process. So you'd only be required on the email to set up your email settings where, number one, you identify your email server here. So therefore, for those of you who use Exchange Server or some other type of emailing software, you would set up your server address, whether if it is by name or by IP address, depending on whether you use what is called DNS within your environment. And the JetBudget uses the standard port 25 for emails. But if you are in an environment that uses another port number than the standard 25, which is designated for email, then it's just a matter of you changing the actual port. And also, if you should be using what is called SSL encryption, where, you know, SSL acronym for Secured Socket Layer, you can tick this checkbox, and your all communication between the JetBudgets and your email server will be SSL encrypted. Now, I should make a note, should advise you of these three settings here. That is the from email address, the SMTP username, and the SMTP password. Depending on your environment in your work scenario, there are some administrators who, in setting up their emails, they designate that email users must be authenticated. Good. So there's a setting that you can set on your email server which says before you relay email out, right, the person who is sending the email must be authenticated against some database. Now, if that setting is set in your organization, that you may need to fill out the information, which is the SMTP username and the password. However, there are some environments where there is an implicit assumption which says that once email is coming from a source that is internal to the organization, then there's an assumption that the person sending the email is authentic. So therefore, email can be relayed without there being any authentication. Now, it's not my role to advise on which is better, because a lot depends. There are so many other factors that you'd have to take into consideration. But suffice it to say, you are not constrained if you're in an environment that may require authentication or that may not require authentication. If authentication is required, then all you'd have to do is to enter the email information. Good. Now, looking again, under the settings gear, there's another menu option called admin.
So let's look at what's available. Now, here, what is highlighted is the user submenu. Now, what's happening here? Jet and the Jet suite of products, you have to be a licensed user in order to use these modules, i.e. the Jet reports or the Jet analytics or the Jet budgets. However, the licensing regime that is used by Jet is also dependent on your Active Directory environment. So the Jet software or solution assumes that you run Active Directory, or from now on we'll call AD. And again, assuming that there are some folks here who may not understand that technical term, just think of Active Directory as the server that allows you to authenticate on your network. That's where you log in your username and password. So it is an Active Directory server that authenticates your credentials when you log in the mornings, whether on your desktop or on your laptop. And then once you're authenticated, you're given access to the resources. So it's the same here in that go to GitHub, there is a login screen, and the login screen, you're going to be prompted to enter your username and password. And that username and password is the same username and password that you would have been using to enter and to log into your domain in Active Directory. So why is this screen important? The administrator for the Jet Hub, therefore, based on their license, and also the fact that this is integrated with your Active Directory, is able to add users who will have access to Jet budgets, or to have access rather to the entire Jet Hub. So it means then that if you are not on your Active Directory domain as a user, you will not be listed, or your name won't be accessible by the hub. So the user screen just allows you to add persons who will have access to the hub. But the permissions menu allows you to add or remove users or user groups. So you'll notice up here for the permissions, it says users or groups. Again, with your Active Directory, you are able to create groups or create organizational units. By you grouping users, you are therefore able to set security settings on the group, and by setting those security settings on the group, it automatically filters to all the members or all the users who are members of the group. So here is where you will be able to go in the budgets menu and to add persons who will be able to have access to the budgeting software, that is Jet Budgets. So as you type a user, what will happen is that the Jet will use what is called LDAP, which is a protocol which allows it to browse for users, etc. And it will collect all the users for you to be able to select either users or group, and then you'll be able to add them as users for Jet Budgets. Now, if you're wondering if this is probably getting a little bit too technical, what I would say is don't worry about it, because there's an expectation that when Jet is installed in your environment, that your IT personnel, someone in your IT department who would have been given the role of administrator, he is probably the individual who will be setting up all these settings based on the gear button.
So if you are just a regular user or consumer of the reports, or if you're just someone who, you know, is expected to be a contributor for the report or a budget owner, the question is, do you need to have a working knowledge of these? And the answer is no. But is it good if you have a cursory knowledge of these settings? Then the answer would be yes. But it's not something that you would need to study or to be concerned about. So the expectation is for these settings where you set up parameters and configurations, etc., would be done by your IT department or a member in your IT department with the requisite permissions to log in and to do all your configuration. So for today, we're going to be looking at this menu item or this menu icon. Now, under the menu icon, which is in the top left of the hub, you'll see the following menu items. Here for the reports would be the reports that you can upload into the Jet Hub and therefore make the reports accessible to users. The scheduler is where you can set up which or how many different reports can be refreshed and scheduled and sent out to individuals on a scheduled basis. Those who may not know, the Jet solution has the ability for you to set up a scheduling protocol where you select certain reports and you determine when those reports should be run. And not only after they are run, are there any recipients who should get a copy of this report? You would do that from within the scheduler. But here's what we're going to be looking at, the budgets. So by highlighting budgets, what are we seeing here? Here we see some budgets. You'll notice that it's pluralized. Now, what am I looking at here? I might be looking at a budget, if I may just use as an example, 2024 budget. And it might seem as if it's a single budget, but that's not really so. Think of each of these as a kind of a receptacle or a container. So by looking at this budget file, which says 2024 budget, this really represents a container of all my budgets that are prepared and assigned to this particular budget file. So if I were to highlight the budget, good, you'll notice here what comes up are the following menu items. And let me explain what a few of them are. One, the copy budget process. The copy budget process allows you to use an existing or an already created budget and to copy it for a new budget. So let me give an example. It is very possible that you might have a very complex and very time-consuming budget process where you may have to be preparing 20, 30, or 40 different budgets. One suggestion is for you to create your budget with all your templates and to use it as an overall template for each successive budget year. So if this were a budget which I used as a template, with each successive year, just copy this budget, and in copying the budget, it will therefore make copies of all the various departmental budgets so that you'll be able to send them out to the respective department heads, a process that would literally just take seconds. So therefore, the copy budget process allows you to send out or to create budgets from a template, which can be then sent out to your respective HODs and thereby reducing the budget process. Here, I've clicked the change owner. Good. And as you can see here, I can designate who is the owner for the budget. Now, the version that I have just allows me to have one owner, but the newly release of the JET budget allows you to assign more than one owner to a particular budget. You see where I actually created a budget which I call the 2024 budget. Now I can go into the budget by just double clicking, and what do we see here? Okay, here we have an overview, a work menu, and the users menu. Now we'd like to first start at the users. You can select the users who will be assigned to a particular budget. So this is separate from the users that we have modified or added under the gear. The difference is as follows. When we use the gear, which I demonstrated to you a few minutes ago, this is where you are selecting persons from Active Directory who can have access to the hub and the menus under the hub. However, once you have opened a budget, you use the users menu option to actually add users who will be a part of 2024. So it is very possible you may have individuals who are a part of the JET hub, but maybe only 4 individuals that you assign to the 2024 budgets. It would therefore mean that the 6 other individuals who would not have been assigned to this budget, they would not have access to the budget templates. So once again, that is key to note. When I demonstrated to you earlier, when I used the gear and I chose the menu option for users, that allowed me to add users from Active Directory who can partake in the JET hub. However, after adding those users to the JET hub, I still have to go a step further where in a particular budget that is created, I now have to determine who are the users that can be added to the budget. Good. So if I want to user to the budget, I just and type the names, and as I'm typing the names, a drop down, IntelliSense drop down will assist me in looking at who are the names that I'm adding to the budget. And once I add the persons to the budget, good. Maybe if I add 2 users here, good. So I'm saying here, out of my pool of users assigned to the JET hub, I'm probably assigning now a user called Budget 1 and a user called Budget 2 to the 2024 budget process. So once users are created, then we can again look at our overview. Now, let me explain what this is saying. Here, in the overview menu, you are able to, in designing your budget, create different sections, subsections, subsections. You can go to different levels of granularity. And that is because it facilitates a roll-up process. Good. So if I may look at what I had created here, I'm saying here under my 2024 budget, I've created 2 subsections or two sections, one called revenue and one called expenses. If, however, I wanted to create another section underneath revenue, I could just easily right click and select. So here we see that I have sales as another section. So how do we do this? Well, work. Let's go to work. Under the work menu, that is where we design the sections, the various subsections. Maybe in your environment, you may find that it's best for you to create your budgets based on departments. You may have an HR department. You may have an operations department. So let's look. So if I were to say under my 2024 budget, I would highlight it and then right click 2024 budget name. And I'm given two options where I'm able to add a section or add a new work item. But if the section create compartments where as it's self-explanatory, sections, subsections, sub-subsections. So therefore it allows you to create the various groupings for your budgets. But now rather than me saying budgets, I'm now going to use the word work item. So a work item is really or simply just a budget. So in my example here, under the 2024 budget section, I want to say, okay, let's add a new section. And if I were to call this section, say, administration, I type it. I might also want to create another section called operations. Good. Now, under administration, I might want to create another section because maybe for administration, I might have an HR department versus a payroll department. But highlight administration, right click, and then say, okay, add another section under there, which I would call payroll, and maybe another section called HR. So quite simple. I was able to demonstrate I can create different sections and subsections. But now that I've created my sections, I am now at the level of granularity where I want to actually create my, my budgets. So on the particular section, in my case, I'm choosing the payroll. And you can say, okay, add a new work item. Now, what is the screen telling us? When you add a new item, which is the actual budget file that you're about to create, you have two options available to you. One, enter the data or assign to another user. So if someone is designated as the co-owner, and the co-owner is the one who is the owner, and the owner is one who will also be preparing his or her own budget, then they would choose the enter date myself. If, however, you may have a budget department or a budget manager or someone who is responsible for preparing of the budgets, then they would choose this option, because what they are going to be doing is preparing a budget template to therefore assign it, to subsequently assign that template to the contributor. So we're going to go to assign to another user. So I might want to give it a name. Let's say payroll. Let's go. Let's say payroll budget. Good. Now, after giving it a name, you'll notice that it says template and it's optional, and there's a select button. Why? I will show you that you have the ability to create a budget template used as the basis of you preparing all the budget files for the various contributors. So some people, in using the template option, will create a template file which just has maybe the broad framework, the skeleton of the actual budget. And then after importing that template, they would subsequently go and make the adjustments which are necessary or appropriate for that particular department. For our case, we are not going to be using a template. So I hit the word create. And what am I seeing? Okay. Now this screen would be different for Dynamics GP users as against the Business Central users. Why? As I had said before, Dynamics GP uses GL account code segments in order for you, or which assists you in creating your GL accounts. Business Central, however, or NAV, uses dimensions. So rather than segments, you would actually see dimensions as a drop down. So if I'm using my payroll budget, I have the ability to scroll through. Maybe I'm familiar with all the GL accounts which are necessary for the payroll department. But if I'm not going to be using the payroll department, not using any specific rather accounts, I could probably click this checkbox, which allows me to select my GL account numbers. I decided to go through and select accounts, but again, as I said, you have the ability to check and uncheck specific accounts that you probably want to make your budget. Now, in this example, we're going to be using our segments, and I'm able, therefore, to split my rows or to create filters based on my segments. So, in my environment, we have 3 segments, where segment 2 was actually for the main accounts, and then segment 1 and segment 3 are 2 additional segments which make up my GL account structure. So here I'm selecting segment 1, and in selecting segment 1, I have a checkbox. Good. So if this were, say, if 000 were, say, the payroll department, then I could probably select, unselect the select all, and just select the segment number which represents my payroll. After selecting my segment, and then I'm going to add now another segment, and the only segment that's available is segment 3. And for my segments, here I would choose the relevant segment for the budget, and in this case, the payroll budget. And here I am saying, okay, I'm going to select segment 0. And before I proceed again, I have to note, because I know that some of the attendees here in this webinar may not use GP, but use maybe Business Central, Dynamics 365 Business Central. So in that case, the budgeting process won't show you segments, but instead will actually show you dimensions. But it's the same concept, right? Where you're able to filter through and be more specific in your chart of accounts that's selected for your budget. Okay. So you'll notice on the right that while I was selecting my accounts and my segments, the software or JetBudgets was actually preparing all the respective headings that represent the combinations of the GL accounts and the various segments. Once completing, I go next. Good. So what is the screen about? Okay. This screen, you'll notice it's headed the work item assignment. So what can we get from this? You may remember when just as we were starting to design our template, we had the option of either doing the budget ourselves or to assign it to someone else. If you're doing the budget yourself, meaning if you chose that option where you're not assigning the budget to anyone else, then this screen will not show. Good. However, once you choose the option of reassigning the budget to someone else, then this summary screen is going to show, because it's now asking you or prompting you to identify who will be responsible for what. So in our case, it's going to be asking you to identify who would be the approver. So here I'll just choose the administrator, and also who would be the contributor. And this is key, because once you've selected the contributor and the approver, and your budget is saved, and you send the budget on to the next process, which is to have the budget completed by the approver, an email will automatically be sent to the contributor advising them that their budget template has been prepared, so they need to log into the hub and download their budget. And because, as in this case, the person who was assigned to be the contributor of this budget is called Budget One, whenever Budget One logs into the hub and chooses the budget menu, they will only see the budget that has been assigned to them as contributor. In this case, what was assigned to Budget One. So if you had 30, 40, 50 different budgets that were created and sent to different department HODs, when the HOD logs in, they won't be seeing budgets that were assigned to other persons. They will only be seeing the budget that has been assigned to them. Also, an email will be sent to the approver, in this case, the administrator, and the email will literally state to the individual that you have been assigned, or he or she has been assigned as the approver for the budget. Good. You also have the ability to put what is called a budget allocation, which is optional. So therefore, if maybe there's a cap in someone's budget, maybe they are to prepare an expense budget, and you said, listen, I don't mind how you're going to be spending that $1 million, but we'll be giving you a cap of $1 million. By you entering the amount in the budget allocation, you're saying that when the person prepares their budget, it cannot exceed this amount. Next is a deadline, where you actually here will select what's the date as a deadline for the budget. And this is important because the deadline works in tandem with the notification process, where you state, listen, I want to send email notification X number of days, X number of times prior to budget. And also I want to send notifications when budgets have passed the deadline for submission, X number of days, X number of times. Likewise, you might want to enter a message. So we're saying for this budget, we'll be able to say, your budget template is now ready for download. Please make note of your deadline for submission. Good. So you have the ability here, once you have completed everything, to either save as a draft or to send. By sending, you're saying that the process is complete and you now want to send it to your budget contributor. However, it's very possible that while preparing your budget template, that you may not be finished with the process. It could be that you may want to make a subsequent adjustment, in which case you would, instead of sending it, you'd save as a draft. One key area where people use the save as a draft is because they might want to include supporting worksheets. Now, you may remember an Excel workbook has many different worksheets, and it's very possible that in you sending out your workbook with the main worksheet of your budget, that you may also have supporting worksheets, supporting templates, which facilitate you creating your budget. So if you know that you're going to be doing subsequent work on your budget, then you would save as a draft. The add files option here allows you to append other documents with your Excel worksheet. Example, maybe you may have a Word document with budget instructions. You know, you may have, for instance, for those of you who have been in the budget process, things like LEs or budget parameters, you know, where it says what exchange rate you are to use, you know, what you should use to help guide you in making these decisions. So if all that data exists, say, in a Word document, you can therefore add that document using the add file process. So therefore, when the budget template goes out to the individual, then they will also get the documents, the supporting documents. However, this is an interesting button here which says understand that you can't hear. Let me see. Are you able to hear him now? Hello? Wow. Let me try one more time. Are you able to hear? Great. I'm not sure what happened a while ago. Oh, good. I'm seeing that people can hear now. All right, my apologies for that technical difficulty. Not sure what happened a while ago. I think most persons probably heard just when I was at the point of saving to draft. So I will well, I'm still waiting for for my template to be saved. Should have been saved already, right? But we're almost near the end of the presentation nonetheless. So I can just talk for a few more minutes while I'm waiting. So as I had said before, you have the option to either send, as you would have seen in the bottom icon here, or to save as a draft. If I know, or if I'm confident that I am not going to be making any subsequent changes to my budget, then I would just click the send button, and the template will be sent to the individual along with the email notification to say, listen, your budget is now ready for preparation, for completion. If, however, I save as a draft, I might save as a draft for many different reasons. One, it might be that I am constructing several templates and I want to send out all my budgets at one particular time. So I might be preparing my budgets, which might take me 2, 3, 4 days. But once they're all prepared, I can now, in one process, send out all my budgets. And that's one reason why I would save as a draft. Another reason why I would save my template as a draft is if I know that I'm going to be doing subsequent work to my budget, i.e., if I'm going to be creating or adding additional worksheets, which are probably supporting templates that help me in constructing my final budget, then I would choose that as well. All right, now I'm having just a challenge here with what's happening. Let me close this and see if I can get back in. All right. Let me log back in the Jet Hub. Let's see. Right, so remember I told you about the login screen at the beginning. And this is connected to my Active Directory. Good. All right. So my budget wasn't saved because I was having some technical difficulty. But so what would happen when you saw me go through the save as a draft process is that you would see, oh, hold on. Let me make sure I'm opening the right budget. Okay, 2024 budget. Okay. Oh, so it actually saved it. So here was a budget that we had created, which is called a payroll budget. And because I said save as a draft, it is now in draft mode. Once I send the budget to the contributor, then it will change from mode to what's called in progress mode. So if I should highlight this and highlight the budget on the work items, good. So I've went to the work menu, hit the work items tab. Here is our payroll budget, which is currently in draft mode. In highlighting our payroll budget, I now have the following options available to me. One, where I can edit the budget. And if I edit the budget, it carries me through the entire process that I went through earlier, where I was able to select the account numbers, select the account segments, or if it's in the case of NAV or Business Central, the dimensions, and also to determine if I want to, who is the appropriate approver and the contributor, and to set the deadline for the budget, etc. If, however, I'm satisfied with my budget, I could hit the send budget, the send button. Now, I want to, as we come to the close of the demo, I want you to look at these two tabs here. These two tabs, one which says templates. You may remember when I was creating the budget template, there was a drop down which asked me if I wanted to select a template. If I had created a template, I would have used this option. And the template option is similar to the budget creation option. So the template option allows me to create a template framework, right? A basic framework or an actual complete budget where I can now use as a template in the creation of my various department budgets. Also, for reminders, let me just hit on reminders. By you enabling reminders, you're saying you want to use the reminder system so that notifications can go out. And if you add a reminder here, as I just clicked the add reminder, I'm saying that I want to send a reminder. Let us see if I wanted to send a reminder 5 days before the deadline. I might also want to send a reminder 2 days before the deadline. So here you see I'm saying 2 days before the deadline. I might also want to send a reminder 1 day before the deadline. But now that the deadline would have come, is there anything that I would like to do? Yes, I'd like to send a reminder as well. So I could say I want to send a reminder. Let me just move this down here. Rather than saying before deadline, I want to send a reminder 1 day after deadline. And I might need to have this reminder repeated every 1 day. So the difference between these is that I'm able to select the days prior to deadline for notification about the upcoming deadline date, or the deadline for the budgets. But I'm also saying that if the budget has not been submitted by the contributor, right, post the submission deadline, then beginning 1 day after the deadline and repeating every 1 day afterwards. So in other words, this system, this setup, this particular configuration will be hounding you every day to make sure, as a reminder, to say you need to send in your budget. You need to send in your budget. You're 1 day past due, 2 days past due, 3 days past due. And it will do this in perpetuity until the individual who is preparing the budget, the contributor, submits their budgets. So that really is what the reminders tab is about. So if I should go back again to the work items where I've highlighted the payroll budget, I can now click the send button. And what the send button will do, 1 minute please. The send button will send the email to the individual and the person will be able to complete their budgets. So I'm not sure if there were any other questions that anybody would have at this time, because there's just one more element of this presentation, and that is know that the person would have received their budget. How do they submit the budget? And the answer is this. You may remember in one of our previous sessions where we looked at the JET ribbon. And the JET ribbon would include, for your budget templates, a particular button which allows you to submit your budget once your budget has been created. So it's a matter of just looking along the ribbon and identifying the button which says submit your budget for approval or to save your budget.
and that will submit your budget for the approver, who will go through and approve and reject your budget accordingly. So that's, in a nutshell, is a brief outline of the budget process. I am not sure if anyone has. Okay, good. So the question is asked, can we open the budget template? Okay, let's see if we can. You may remember I said that we did have some technical issues. So I'm still hoping that, well, the budget file, okay. So you'll notice that in clicking the send button, it has now changed the status to not started. And why? Because the budget has not been opened for preparation by the user. So let's see if we can get this going, and let us see. So question is asked is if we can demonstrate. Go to work items, that. All right. I'm going to have to just create another budget because I had assigned the budget to someone. So just give me 1 sec. Let me just prepare something for you, because the question was asked by Jan Polak. It says, okay, can we open the budget template for the payroll? Is it linked to an Excel spreadsheet? The answer is yes. But what happened is that I had assigned it to someone. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to now create a budget for myself. And then I'll show you what the budget looks like within Excel. So here, if I say new work, and here I'm going to enter data myself, and I'm going to say payroll. No, it is HR. Beautiful. There are no templates, so I'm going to create budget, and likewise for me, just for the purpose of this example, I'm just going to select my accounts and my account segments. In my case, that's okay. I'll select segment 100 this time. And also for segment 3, I'm saying that I will select, it is 01. Good. And then I click finish. So you'll notice here I have entered data in Excel. So I can skip the process and do it afterwards, or do it here right now. But I'm just going to skip it because I want to save the budget to my file. So I'm going back, waiting for a refresh. Good. So here, Jan, I believe was your name. Here is my budget, HR, and you'll notice now I have open because my budget has not yet started. So by opening it, I'm going to enter data in Excel. You'll notice here that the Excel file is in the bottom left of my hub. I just click, open the file. And what I'm seeing now here is my budget template. So all I would need to do is just to do some aesthetics, which is to make my a little bit more presentable. There you go.
So this is a standard budget template. So it would have had my columns, which were defined previously. And here, my totals, both row-wise and column-wise. So here are my budget totals at the base of my Excel. And I'm therefore able to put in my numbers. Good. And the totals will come across accordingly. And the point that I was making is that once I've completed my budget, I'm now able to go to the Jet Hub, and under the Jet Hub, those of you who participated in a previous session that we had, the Jet Ribbon rather has these following buttons. And once you have opened a Jet budget file, there are just catch this a second. Okay. Right. There's a button here which says Save in Budget. This button now allows me to upload my budget to the Jet Hub, which will now be approved accordingly. I'm seeing here where I have one more question. Where the question is, can you add tabs to the spreadsheet? And yes, and that's a very good question. And the answer is yes. As a matter of fact, Jan, we just did a project with a client where we had to create supporting templates, which were added. Let me just remove your name. We had to create supporting templates which were added to the worksheets. And therefore, the individuals never had to enter any data in the upload sheet, but rather in the supporting sheets. And the data was cross-referenced into this upload sheet. By saving accordingly, it was uploaded into Jet budgets. I mean, that's a very good question, and the answer is yes, you can. Let's see if there's another question. Oh, okay, right. Okay, yes, so that's the answer. Yes, Jan, that is the answer, that it can be done, and we just did it with a client. They used 7 supporting template worksheets along with the main upload worksheet. And for instance, if there was, let us say, traveling, there was a sheet which showed if you were traveling to which country, by which date, then what exchange rate to use, what would have been the budgeted airfare, the number of persons. So all they did was just enter the data in that template, and it was automatically cross-referenced into the upload sheet. So therefore, nobody had to even make any entries in the upload sheet. So to answer your question directly, Jan, yes, it is so. Okay, I'm not sure if anyone else has any questions. Just one note to make. You'll notice that I have here in the ribbon this button which says Save in Budget. I only see that button because when I created this budget, I was also the owner of the budget. If, however, I was assigning the budget to someone else and there had to be an approval, there would be another button beside the Save in Budget. Right? There'll be another button which basically says that you want to send the budget for approval. So once your budget is part of an approval process, there will be another action button beside the saving button, saving budget, for the approval process. If, however, there isn't an approval process, then you won't see that button beside here. That's just a point that I think I should make for everyone. Okay, is there any other questions, or are there any other questions? All right, I hope you were able to enjoy the presentation. You know, I'm sorry for that little technical hiccup, but the files seem to have saved. So on behalf of Optimus, I just want to thank you all for participating. I know that your time is very valuable, and we really appreciate it and hope that we made this worthwhile to you. Don't be afraid to reach out to the Optimus team, to Alejandro, Gabriel, etc. They'll be more than willing to provide you further information and also to provide you a link with a copy of the recording of today's session. And also, if you require maybe an additional presentation or discussion with someone on this product, then please feel free to reach out to us. Please feel free to reach out to us. So on behalf of the team, if there are no other questions, I'd just like to say thank you very much. And we appreciate your participation. And you have a great and a wonderful day and week, the rest of it. And stay safe and God bless.